Jordie, the spectacle of democracy that we have witnessed recently, that was the US presidential debates.
Yeah.
Me and Jordie had the common sense the other night to sit down and watch the debates. A bit of a laugh.
It was, it was also harrowing.
It was harrowing,
Yeah.
It was truly depressing.
Yeah.
I wanted to go outside and jump in front of the truck afterwards, and I don't even live in the United States.
I'll just add that watching it made me... I was so happy. I was so grateful that I live in Australia. And look, I'll be honest, I do shit on the political class here in Australia on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But watching that reaffirmed my gratefulness for being born in this country and for having a somewhat stable political system.
Yes.
And a government that,
And a somewhat, just some sort of organisation in the government, essentially. Yeah. Some sort of vague, whiff of leadership that is tangible. What do we think? What were your main impressions?
My main impressions were, first of all, that it wasn't what I expected. No, I expected Trump to be on the front foot, just attacking Biden and just drumming him down and just personally, going after his mental fortitude and the Democrats, which he did a little bit of. He did. And I don't know if Biden was worse or better than I expected, because his State of the Union, which was a couple months ago, he managed to stand up and speak for about, I think it was half an hour at least, without doing his and kind of just falling into a word salad. Yeah. There was one moment where he jumbled his words, but apart from that, he came out, looked like he was pumped up on Adderall. He was there, he stared into into Congress, and he delivered his speech. And when the MAGA wing of the Republican Party started heckling him, he was able to talk them down. Yep. And to be honest, when I watched it, I was like, okay, that's what a US president should be able sound to like and look like. This debate, when we both saw him walk out, he just looked lost. It looked rough. It was just hard looking at him.
And I think as well, for example, when Trump was talking, and obviously you have the cameras on both of them. So, for example, Trump would be making his point or his counterpoint or whatever he was saying, and then Biden would be on the other side, and just the look on Biden's face was not the look of a man who seemed to be conscious of where he was.
He looked.
No, he looked. Yeah, he didn't look. He didn't look healthy. He still looked like he had these pre-programmed points.
Yeah.
So I think obviously they'd just been rehearsing on just focusing on certain talking points, certain rhetoric, which he was able to, like you said, actually reasonably coherently kind of spit his points out.
At some points.
But there was just these talking points. There was no natural flow or natural response in a conversation.
And he couldn't take it to Trump.
No, absolutely not.
He couldn't repudiate his points. He couldn't go back and actually attack him on them. It was just kind of like Trump would talk and then Biden would almost just not process what he had said and kind of go back, as you said, into these preloaded talking points. And then there was a few points where he got those talking points muddled.
Mixed up, yes. Yeah,
there was a few of them where he was like, we destroyed Medicare. Yeah. And I was just like, hang on a second. Weren't you going on about how you were supporting Medicare?
Supporting Medicare,
and then you've destroyed it. And there was that other point where and this was something going into the debate that Biden should have pressed was about the abortion rights, because most Americans do support not having draconian abortion laws. And he just was unable to kind of pack that point in and attack Trump with it.
No, of course.
And at one point they were in the weeds of their talking points on the abortion law. And he started going on about a woman that was murdered by some immigrants.
By immigrants, supposedly, yes.
Which didn't really help with his argument that he was strengthening the border.
And thankfully they had time limits, because they cut him off at the end of his time limit. And I don't think he was going in. So that probably did actually, did save him in that one particular aspect.
Yes, yeah.
But it was interesting as well, because again, like you said, Trump didn't come out... He didn't come out because
all guns blazing.
Remember last time in the debates, he had zingers ready to go. He was talking crap about everyone.
And I'll be honest, that was half the reason I wanted to watch it, because I knew that it would be devoid of any substance. I actually just wanted it for him just being just debaucherous and narcissistic.
Yes, it's the perfect encapsulate. I feel he is the perfect encapsulation of American culture, and it reflects to free. It's like a Big Mac meal.
He is.
It tastes like crap. Yeah. There's no substance, terrible for you, but it tastes hell good, while you're eating it, and it's just, there's no substance to it, but at the same time, he was on fire. He had zingers, you know what I mean? Whereas this time, He was quite composed, I have to say.
He was trying to be quite presidential.
Yes.
Unlike
it didn't just have these reactionary, kind of reactionary slogans and stuff. He did seem to be trying to act more like a statesman. I will say, though, obviously, they're only, I think, 2 years apart. I think Biden's 81 and Trump's 79 or something.
Yep.
And obviously, Joe Biden is far more mentally deficient than Trump. I say that politely. But Trump didn't look that great either, to be honest, compared to, the last times he's been up in doing this sort of thing. He always did look quite, full of energy still, you know what I mean? Still waving his fist, whereas he didn't seem to have that aura. And obviously, I think being campaigning pretty much for the last 4 years straight and all the legal troubles and stuff he's had, I think they have taken their toll on him also.
10 years with inside the political establishment there in America. You look at those photos of Obama when he first went in and he's got beautiful black-brown hair. He looks quite healthy and fit, and then afterwards he's greyed and he looks very kind of strained and gaunt.
He does.
I think that just being with inside the political establishment like that, and as you said, campaigning non-stop, going through those legal battles, being in court, I think it's started to drain.
And there's only so much adrenochrome that you can use to keep you young.
There's only so much Adderall and adrenochrome you can pump into yourself before age starts to catch up.
Who do you think won the debate?
There was no winners.
Would you say the American people lost as a whole, or democracy lost as a whole? Because I felt like I lost a bit of hope for the future seeing that. Yeah,
I did too. I think Biden lost because I don't think he was capable to demonstrate that he is going to be fit to serve another term.
No, absolutely.
And I think Trump won because he was able to sit back and just let Biden unravel. And as you said, he didn't kind of go out like an attack dog. No. He tried to be more statesmanlike and presidential, which I think may help him kind of win that swing vote in middle America.
Yep.
So only time will tell. However,
how was it that you phrased that voting block? The wine drinking middle class.
White wine sipping America.
Yeah. Of course.
The people that aren't, kind of like really radical on either side that just want someone to stand up that goes, that sort of common sense.
The Democrats are corrupt. That does seem like common sense.
That does seem sips wine.
Sips wine.
And it's kind of like, look, I don't want draconian abortion laws, but I don't want my kids learning kind of like critical race theory. Sips wine. But what I do think is that debate really resembles America.
Yes.
Especially, in my opinion, Biden.
Yes.
Just the steady decline of him, their empire, and their political system.
It is, isn't
Anywhere else in the world, if that debate was here in Australia, it would just be... It was dismal, but if that was anywhere else in the world, it'd almost be just like that country is a complete laugh.
It's gone. It's
complete
gone.
joke. And in the debate, there was no policy discussion. It was just kind of talking about, it was like, you've ruined the country, Biden. You open border, you've destroyed our nation. And then Biden would be like, this is the greatest nation on the earth. Yeah. We're the strongest ever. We have the strongest military in the world. And it's just kind of like these pre-rehearsed talking points that they sit there and they just press these buttons, and there's no actual political discussion.
No.
There's no vision.
No.
Neither of them really have a vision for the country or any policies that they're putting forwards. And it's these kind of talking points, the border and abortion. And they got into the weeds a little bit of foreign policy, but it was...
Again, nothing of substance.
It was so dismal.
I did see what I thought was interesting was in an attempt to prove who was more pro-Israel, Donald Trump did actually call Biden a Palestinian as a slur, which I thought was interesting. I've never seen that. I've never seen that before.
What led up to...
It would be interesting as well to see anyone in this day and age use any other nationality or race or ethnicity as a slur.
Yep.
As a slur. If I said, Jordie, you're a New Zealander, but you're a bad New Zealander, you'd think.
What led up to that was that Biden was trying to argue that he had a peace deal, that Hamas and Israel had agreed to a ceasefire, and then Trump turned around and he goes, "No, they don't. Hamas doesn't want a ceasefire. Israel wants to keep going, and they should." And it was just like you really kind of you saw him come out, and I was like, "Oh wow."
No, but it was amazing because, for example, I think Joe Biden was attempting to appeal to the kind of like a normal human being, being like, hey, we probably shouldn't support genocide. He was trying to make that appeal, or hey, we're going to
get a ceasefire,
get a ceasefire. Or again, he was like, we're going to we can't allow corporate greed to run the country. We're going to make sure that businesses pay their fair share of tax. But then Trump would come at it from the other side, being like, no, they need to pay less tax.
Yeah.
What are you on about?
Well,
We need more greed, not less greed.
His entire argument to why the economy was better under his administration was the huge corporate tax cuts and the deregulation.
And the stock market as well.
Yeah, but that's like Reagan era, 1980s Reagan era talking points. That
the evidence Reagan called. He wants his talking points back.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was all he's had. And I was just sitting there in just utter disbelief.
Yeah.
There was no vision. There was nothing for the future.
No.
And the funniest part that I took away from it was when Biden, in his very kind of like archaic speech, was just like, what did he say? He was like, my son's not a loser, you're a loser. Yeah. And he's like, you have the morals of an alley cat. You had sex with a prostitute while your wife was pregnant. So you had sex with a porn star while your wife was pregnant with your kid. And Trump just turns around and goes, I did not have sex with a porn star. And at that point, I almost just like had to. I was like, what are we listening to? Like,
truly hilarious. What a call. We both lost it laughing at that. It was so good. Oh. But look, it's horrible, though. It's horrible. It's really bad. It's like we're sitting here laughing about it. It's terrible.
Because the reason you have to find the humour in it is because as I said, it's very sad. You
have to, yeah. It is. And it's not like, for example, I always find a good debate. If you're watching a good political debate, obviously you might have your particular side. You might agree with this side more than that side, but still, a well-structured debate with two intelligent people, you still learn things. You come away from the debate and be like, well, I didn't know that fact. I didn't know this, for example. We've all seen debates where you go, oh, that's super interesting. And there's still a mental challenge there on both sides of what side you're on originally. Whereas this was just nothing.
You felt depressed.
It was like
afterwards.
the Big Mac. There was nothing of substance in there. And you felt depressed after eating exactly like a Big Mac.
Both of us enjoy politics. Like, we can listen to some things that people would find pretty like mind-numbing.
Absolutely.
But about halfway through this, my brain just switched off because I was like, what the am I watching? What is happening?
I know.
It was absolutely shocking. The other thing is about what you were saying just then, about how when you watch a good debate, you obviously take things away from it, is that the way they've set that debate up is that there is no outside challenges. It is the presidential nominee of the Democrats and the Republican Party, both corporate parties, and they have these debates that are just all substance.
Yeah.
And that you don't get any outside voices because there are other people inside the American political system running for president. Cornel West, Jill Stein, RFK Jr. And even if you sat down and listened to, for example, an RFK Jr., which does get support from Republican and Democrats, and say he sat down and had a debate with Jill Stein or even Bernie Sanders, for example, just the type of debate and the conversation you would get from that.
It would be fascinating.
And it'd be somewhat wholesome.
It would
I think America would actually take a lot from it.
And they would also respond probably positively.
And they probably would respond positively, and I think the public would be better off for it. But if you watch those kinds of things and you're exposed to that, and that's your kind of like, that's your political debate, I can understand why their entire political system is just decaying.
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I actually heard RFK recently speak about how there'd been such manoeuvring to make sure that he wasn't allowed to debate. Because again, he'd wipe the floor with... I don't agree with all his policies or whatever, but he'd wipe the floor with both of them. And even, for example, even worse is Jill Stein, who's had at least RFK Jr.'s had quite a heavy alternative media coverage. Jill Stein has had no or very little alternative media coverage, but every time I've listened to her, she's wiped the floor with everything. It's very interesting to listen to. And I don't think she'd ever win, or RFK Jr. would ever win, but it's obviously such precarious... Like, the political system is obviously so precarious that simply having them introduced into the recipe would just cause disaster for the whole system.
It shows you how tightly controlled it is. There can never be any challenges outside of outside of the corporate duopoly.
Yes.
There can never be any challenging voices.
No.
They make sure that doesn't happen. And it really just, in my opinion, shows the facade that is their democracy.
Yeah. And again, this is where we get to where you have two of the least charismatic, least capable, decrepit options that they have to choose from. So I sympathise with all our comrades over there in the United States. Just good luck and keep holding out.
Well, we shall see come November what happens.
What happens, absolutely. And it'll be, regardless, it's important because it affects every single person on Earth.
It does. It really does. And it affects what happens here in Australia.
Very much so.